The dust never settled on Helios 7. It hung in the air like a dirty curtain, turning every sunset into a bloodshot eye. Kang Daeho stepped off his ship and felt the familiar grit between his teeth. 68 years old and still breathing the air of backwater planets. Some men retired to beaches. He retired to places that smelled like rust and regret. His ship, the Eternal Dawn, needed repairs. Again. The hull plating on the starboard side had taken damage from micrometeorites, and the navigation computer was making sounds it shouldn't make. Daeho walked through the crowded market district, past vendors selling everything from stolen tech to questionable meat. Nobody looked at him twice. He was just another aging spacer trying to keep his bucket of bolts flying. The repair shop quoted him 3,000 credits. He had 2,000. The mechanic, a scaled creature with too many arms, shook its head. Come back when you have real money, old man. Daeho left and found a cantina. The kind of place where the floor stuck to your boots and the drinks came in dirty glasses. He sat in a corner booth and nursed something that claimed to be whiskey. Around him, conversations flowed in a dozen languages. He understood most of them. Decades in space taught you languages or taught you how to die. That's when he heard it. Two Vraxian traders at the next table, talking in their clicking language. Daeho had fought Vraxians during the border wars. He knew their words for cargo, profit, and auction. He also knew their word for slaves. 3 females, one clicked to the other. Talvari, fresh from the conquest. They'll bring a fortune from the right buyers. The compound is locked tight, the other responded. Boss doesn't want anyone knowing we have them until the auction. Daeho's hand tightened on his glass. Talvari. He'd met a few during his service. Peaceful people. Telepathic. They didn't believe in violence. That made them easy targets when the Vraxian syndicate came looking for new merchandise. He finished his drink and left. The smart thing would be to walk away. Find another repair shop. Scrape together the credits somehow. Leave this dust hole planet. The smart thing would be to mind his own business. Daeho had stopped doing smart things about 40 years ago. The compound sat on the eastern edge of the settlement. High walls, guard towers, energy barriers. Daeho found a spot on a nearby ridge and set up his old military binoculars. He'd kept them from his Marine days. They still worked better than most new equipment. For 3 hours, he watched. Guards changed shifts every 4 hours. 2 at the main gate, 1 in each tower, 3 patrolling the perimeter. Professional setup. The Vraxian syndicate didn't hire amateurs. Then he saw them. Through a window on the 2nd floor. 3 figures, female-shaped, with skin that seemed to glow faintly even in daylight. Talvari. Their bioluminescent markings should have been bright, but from this distance they looked dim. Sick, maybe, or starved. One of them moved closer to the window. She had violet markings along her arms and neck. She pressed her hand against the glass, and even from far away, Daeho could see the despair in her posture. He lowered his binoculars. A heaviness settled in his chest. It was an old feeling. The same one he'd felt 30 years ago when pirates attacked a civilian transport and he'd arrived too late. The same one he'd felt when he found his own family's colony burned to ash. He'd been too late too many times. Maybe just once he could be early enough. Daeho packed up his equipment and headed back to town. He needed information, and information cost money. He sold his backup plasma pistol to a pawn shop for 800 credits. It hurt. That pistol had saved his life on Titan Station, but dead men didn't need pistols. He found Yoonji in a data cafe. She was young, maybe 25, with sharp eyes and sharper equipment. She sold information to anyone with credits and didn't ask questions. Daeho had used her services before. I need building schematics, he said, sliding the credits across the table. Vraxian Compound. Eastern District. Yoonji raised an eyebrow. That's a dangerous ask, old man. Those people don't forgive and they don't forget. I'm not planning to send them an apology, she smiled at that. 300 credits. 200. 250 because I like your face. Well, I like that you still have a face. Most people who mess with the Vraxians don't keep theirs long. The deal was made. 2 hours later, Daeho had complete schematics of the compound downloaded to his datapad. Security systems, guard quarters, holding cells, everything. Yoonji was good at her job. That night, Daeho sat in his ship and studied the plans. The compound had been built as a warehouse originally. The Vraxians had added security, but they'd kept the same basic structure. Old buildings had old weaknesses. He found 3 of them in the first hour. The main power generator sat in a separate building behind the compound. Take that out, and the energy barriers would drop. The security doors would default to locked, but that could work in his favor. Guards rushing around in the dark, trying to restore power, wouldn't notice one old man moving through the chaos. The holding cells were on the second floor, eastern wing. 4 guards stationed nearby, according to the patrol schedules Yoonji had included. He'd need a distraction. Something big enough to pull them away, but not so big it brought the entire facility down on his head. Daeho leaned back in his chair. The ship's metal walls creaked around him. He was too old for this. His knees hurt when it rained. His shoulder still ached from a bullet wound he'd taken 15 years ago. Smart men his age were playing with grandchildren, not planning assaults on slaver compounds. But he'd seen those 3 women at the window. He'd seen the dimming light of their markings. In 3 days, they'd be sold to the highest bidder, scattered across the galaxy to lives he didn't want to imagine. He'd been too late before. He wouldn't be too late again. Daeho began making a list of equipment he'd need. EMP grenades, breaching charges, medical supplies. It would cost everything he had left. The ship repairs would have to wait. Hell, eating would have to wait. Outside his viewport, Helios 7's sun was setting again. Another bloody eye closing on another day of injustice. But tomorrow, maybe, 3 people would see a sunrise as free beings. Daeho allowed himself a small smile. It felt strange on his weathered face. He couldn't remember the last time he'd smiled while planning a mission. But this wasn't like other missions. This one mattered in a way he couldn't quite explain. He stood up, his knees popping, and began gathering his equipment. 3 days until the auction. That meant 2 days to prepare and 1 day to execute. Time to show these slavers why humans had a reputation in this galaxy. Time to remind them that age didn't mean weakness. It meant experience. It meant knowing exactly how to hurt people who deserved hurting. The old soldier checked his rifle one more time. Tomorrow, he'd buy the grenades. The next day, he'd finalize the plan. And on the 3rd day, he'd free those women or die trying. Either way, he'd sleep better than he had in years. Night came to Helios 7 like a curtain dropping on a stage. Daeho watched from his position on the ridge as the compound's lights flickered on. He'd been lying in the dirt for 4 hours, watching guard rotations, timing everything. His back hurt. His legs had gone numb 20 minutes ago. He didn't care. The pack beside him held everything he owned that mattered. EMP grenades, breaching charges, his old service rifle, medical supplies. He'd sold everything else. The backup navigation computer, his collection of Earth music, even the good coffee maker. All gone. Turned into tools for tonight. He checked his chronometer. 2,300 hours. Guard change in 15 minutes. That's when he'd move. The power generator sat 200 meters from the main compound, a squat building with minimal security. The Vraxians probably thought nobody would be stupid enough to attack them here. They were learning tonight that stupid and brave sometimes looked the same. Daeho moved when the guards changed. Old habits from his marine days came back like muscle memory. Low crawl, using shadows, breathing controlled. His body complained with every movement, but he ignored it. Pain was just information. You didn't have to listen. He reached the generator building without triggering any alarms. The door had a basic lock. Daeho pulled out a bypass key he'd made from Yoonji's specifications. 20 seconds, and the door clicked open. Inside, the generator hummed like a sleeping beast. Daeho placed his EMP charges carefully. 2 on the main power coupling, 1 on the backup system. He set the timers for 3 minutes and started moving toward the compound. The explosion wasn't loud. EMPs didn't need to be. One moment the compound blazed with light. The next, Darkness swallowed everything. Emergency lights flickered on, then died as the backup generator failed. Chaos erupted immediately. Deho heard shouts from the guard towers. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness like confused insects. He moved toward the eastern wall where the schematic showed a maintenance door. The breaching charge made more noise, a sharp crack that brought guards running. But they were running toward the generator building, thinking that's where the attack was. Deho slipped through the smoking doorway and into the compound. Inside was madness. Guards rushed past him in the darkness. Some wore night vision gear, but most didn't. The Vraxians had gotten lazy, relying on their security systems. Now those systems were dead and they were blind. Deho climbed the stairs to the second floor. His rifle was up, scanning corners. A guard appeared at the top of the stairwell. Vraxian, big one, reaching for an alarm panel. The rifle kicked twice. The guard went down. Deho kept moving. The hallway stretched ahead of him. According to the schematics, the holding cells were at the end. 3 doors on the left. He could hear more guards coming from the western wing. 30 seconds, maybe less. He reached the first door and placed a small charge on the lock. The explosion was barely louder than a cough, but it did the job. The door swung open. 3 pairs of eyes stared at him from the darkness. Eyes that glowed faintly with bioluminescent light. Violet, silver, and azure. The 3 Talvari women pressed against the far wall, terrified. Deho lowered his rifle. "I'm here to help," he said in standard Galactic Common. "We need to move, now." They didn't move, just stared at him. Of course they didn't trust him. He was a stranger with a gun, breaking into their cell. For all they knew, he was just a different kind of monster. The woman with violet markings stepped forward. She was taller than the others, and despite her obvious fear, she held herself with dignity. She looked at Deho, and he felt something strange touch his mind. Light. Questioning. Not words, but impressions. Intent. She was reading him, or trying to. Talvari telepathy wasn't strong enough to control minds, but it could sense emotions. Truth and lies felt different to them. Whatever she sensed in Deho made her nod. She turned to the others and made a series of soft sounds. The silver-marked woman and the azure-marked one looked uncertain, but they moved toward the door. "Stay behind me," Deho said. He pulled emergency ration bars from his pack and handed them over. "Eat these. You'll need energy." The women took the food with trembling hands. They were thin. Too thin. The Vraxians hadn't been feeding them properly. Anger flared in Deho's chest, but he pushed it down. Anger, later. Survival now. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. Lots of them. The guards had figured out where he was. "Go." Deho pointed down the hallway toward a secondary stairwell. "That way. Down to the ground floor. Out through the loading bay. Don't stop for anything." The violet-marked woman shook her head. She pointed at him, then at them. Together. The meaning was clear. "I'll be right behind you," Deho lied. He knew he wouldn't. Someone had to slow down these guards, or none of them would make it. She knew he was lying. Her eyes widened, and she shook her head more forcefully. She grabbed his arm, surprisingly strong for someone so starved. The guards reached the hallway. 5 of them, all armed. Deho pushed the women behind him and opened fire. The rifle barked in the enclosed space. 2 guards dropped. The others scattered for cover. Return fire lit up the hallway. Deho felt something punch his shoulder. Pain bloomed, but his arm still worked. He kept firing, forcing the guards back. The youngest Talvari, the one with azure markings, was crying. The silver-marked one pulled her toward the stairs. But the violet-marked woman wouldn't leave. She stood beside Deho, and he felt her presence in his mind. Strength. Courage. Not his own, but hers. Flowing into him. It shouldn't have been possible. Talvari couldn't do that with humans. The species weren't compatible for telepathic bonding, but somehow, in this moment of desperation, she was trying anyway. Deho felt his exhaustion fade slightly, felt his aim steady. He dropped another guard and grabbed the woman's hand. "Together," he said. "We run together." They ran. All four of them through the darkness, down the secondary stairs. Guards shouted behind them. Alarms finally started working as auxiliary power kicked in. The compound was waking up. They burst through the loading bay doors. Daeho's ship was parked 200 meters away. Might as well have been 2,000. Gunfire chased them across the open ground. The azure-marked woman stumbled. Daeho grabbed her, practically carrying her. His shoulder screamed where the bullet had gone through. Blood ran down his arm. Didn't matter. Keep moving. They reached the ship, and Daeho slapped the emergency release. The ramp dropped. He pushed the women up first, then turned and fired back at the pursuing guards. His rifle clicked empty. He threw it at the nearest Vraxian and ran up the ramp. "Hold on!" he shouted, hitting the cockpit running. His hands flew over controls he could operate in his sleep. The engines roared. Something hit the hull. More gunfire. The ship lifted. Daeho pushed the throttles forward and they climbed fast. Too fast. The hull groaned. Warning lights blazed. He ignored them all. A fighter launched from the compound. Daeho saw it on sensors and cursed. The Eternal Dawn was a freighter, not a warship. They couldn't outrun a fighter. But they could do something fighters couldn't. Daeho aimed for the asteroid field that ringed Helios 7. The fighter pilot was good, but Daeho had been flying for 40 years. He threaded the needle between spinning rocks, using their mass to break sensor locks. The fighter tried to follow. Tried. It clipped an asteroid and became an expanding ball of fire. Daeho set course for the jump point. His hands shook on the controls. Blood dripped from his fingers. The violet-marked woman appeared beside him in the cockpit. She pressed her hands against his shoulder wound. He felt warmth. Not burning, but healing. Her bioluminescence grew brighter as she worked. The pain faded, not completely, but enough. "Thank you," he said. His voice sounded far away. "Need to jump. Then we can rest." The jump calculations finished. Daeho initiated the hyperdrive. The stars stretched into lines, then darkness took him. The last thing he felt was gentle hands catching him as he fell. The old soldier had saved them. Now they would save him. Fair was fair. Daeho woke to the sound of humming. Soft, melodic, like water running over stones. His eyes opened slowly. The ceiling of his ship's medical bay greeted him. Clean white panels. Lights set to low. No pain. That last part surprised him. He'd been shot. He remembered that clearly. Shoulder wound, maybe other injuries from the escape. He should hurt. He sat up carefully. His shoulder was bandaged with something that glowed faintly. Talvari biodressing, he realized. He'd seen it before during the war. Their healers could make organic bandages that accelerated healing. Rare and expensive. These women had used it on him. The humming came from the corner. The silver-marked woman sat there, watching him. When she saw him awake, she made a soft sound and the other two appeared in the doorway. The violet-marked one came forward first. She studied him with concerned eyes, then placed her hand gently on his forehead. He felt that strange mental touch again. Checking him, making sure he was truly all right. "I'm okay," Daeho said. His voice came out rough. "Thanks to you." She tilted her head, not understanding the words. "Right. Language barrier." Daeho pointed at himself. "Daeho, my name is Daeho." Understanding lit her features. She pointed at herself. "Yuna." Then at the silver-marked woman. "Haran." Then at the youngest, the azure-marked one. "Sora." Simple, direct. First contact established. Daeho nodded and repeated the names. Yuna, Haran, Sora. He pointed at himself again. "Daeho." They smiled. It was the first time he'd seen them smile. It transformed their faces, making them look less haunted, less broken. Sora actually giggled, a sound like bells. Over the next few hours, Daeho established basic communication. He found a translation program in his ship's computer. Old software, probably out of date, but it helped. They could exchange simple concepts: food, water, safe, danger. He learned that Yuna was the eldest, a leader among her people. Heron had been a scholar, a keeper of knowledge. Sora was young, barely into adulthood by Tal'Vari standards. They'd been taken during a raid on their colony. Families scattered. Everything they knew, destroyed. Deho told them about Haven Station, a neutral colony 2 weeks away at current speed. Humans ran it, but all species were welcome. They could find sanctuary there, maybe find other Tal'Vari survivors. The women listened quietly. When he finished, Yuna asked through the translator, "Why save us?" It was a good question. Deho thought about it while the ship hummed around them. Why had he saved them? 3 strangers from a species he barely knew, on a planet that wasn't his problem. "Because I could," he finally said. "Because I looked the other way before and people died. I'm tired of looking away." Yuna studied him with those luminescent eyes. Then she nodded slowly. The concept seemed to make sense to her. The days passed in a strange routine. Deho taught them about the ship, how to use the food synthesizer, how to operate the emergency systems, basic safety protocols. They learned quickly, their telepathic connection letting them share knowledge among themselves. In return, they taught him about Tal'Vari culture. Through the improving translation software and simple demonstrations, he learned about their homeworld. A place of vast forests and singing crystals. Cities built in harmony with nature. A society based on cooperation rather than competition. He learned about family pods. Groups of Tal'Vari who bonded together, not just romantically but emotionally and spiritually. They shared everything. Thoughts, feelings, resources. The idea of someone living alone seemed tragic to them. "You are alone?" Heron asked one evening. They sat in the common area, sharing a meal. The women ate carefully, still recovering from starvation. "Yes," Deho admitted. "Long time now." "Why?" Sora asked. Her common was improving fastest. "You are good, kind. Why no family?" How did he explain? "I had family once, long ago. They died. After that, I just kept moving. Never stayed anywhere long enough to build something new." The 3 women exchanged looks. That telepathic communication he couldn't hear. Then Yuna spoke. "That is sad. Beings need others, need connection. You saved us. We are grateful. We would like to be your friends." Friends? The word felt foreign. Deho had had comrades, partners on jobs, people he drank with occasionally. But friends? People who cared if he lived or died? Those had been rare for a long time. "I'd like that," he said, and meant it. The second week of travel brought complications. The ship's sensors detected a vessel following them. Deho ran the signature through his database. Vraxian design. Bounty hunters, probably. The syndicate wanted their property back. He didn't tell the women immediately, didn't want to scare them. But that night, during their evening meal, Yuna fixed him with a knowing look. "Something wrong," she said. Not a question, a statement. Damn telepaths. "Ship following us, Vraxians, bounty hunters. We need to take a detour through the nebula expanse. Dangerous, but it'll hide us." The women absorbed this quietly. Then Heron spoke. "You are worried. We feel it. Do not worry alone. We are together now." It was such a simple thing to say, but it hit Deho harder than he expected. Not alone. He wasn't alone anymore. These 3 women, strangers 2 weeks ago, were choosing to share his burden. The nebula looked beautiful from the outside. Swirling colors like paint and water. Inside, it was a nightmare. Radiation interference made sensors unreliable. Navigation became guesswork. And somewhere in this mess, bounty hunters were trying to find them. Deho flew by instinct, trusting decades of experience. The women sat with him in the cockpit, silent support. He felt their presence like a warm weight. Comforting. Real. Then disaster struck. A radiation surge. The ship's systems went haywire. Alarms screamed. The hull began to heat up. Hold on, Daeho shouted. He fought the controls, trying to turn them toward clearer space. The ship groaned. Something exploded in engineering. Yuna was suddenly beside him. Her hands covered his on the controls. He felt her mind touch his. Not words, but pure sensation, direction, guidance. Somehow she could sense the safe paths through the nebula. Her telepathy, usually limited to other Talvari, was reaching out and reading the energy patterns. Together, they steered the ship. His hands, her mind. It shouldn't have worked. Human and Talvari weren't compatible for this kind of connection. But desperation made new rules. They broke through the nebula's edge and into clear space. The bounty hunter ship was nowhere on sensors. They'd lost it in the radiation. Daeho slumped in his chair, exhausted. Yuna collapsed beside him. The connection had drained them both. But they'd survived. Together. Heron and Sora rushed forward with water and medical supplies. They tended to both Daeho and Yuna with gentle efficiency. A team, a unit, a family pod, Daeho realized. That's what they were becoming. Not by Talvari standards, maybe, but something similar, something new. Thank you, he said to Yuna when he could speak again. She smiled weakly. Together, she said. We are together now. The word echoed in his mind long after they left the cockpit. Together. He'd been alone for so long, he'd forgotten what together felt like. 5 more days to Haven Station. 5 more days with these remarkable women. Then they'd find their own path and he'd go back to his life. But as he lay in his bunk that night, Daeho wondered if he wanted to go back. Wondered if maybe, just maybe, this accidental family was worth keeping. Sleep took him before he found an answer. Haven Station appeared on sensors like a jewel floating in darkness. Built into a massive asteroid, the station housed over 50,000 beings from dozens of species. Lights sparkled from thousands of windows. Ships came and went like insects around a hive. It was beautiful in its own chaotic way. Daeho guided the damaged Eternal Dawn into a docking bay. The ship groaned and shuddered, complaining about the rough treatment it had endured. He'd need major repairs. Money he didn't have for a ship he could barely afford to keep flying. Yuna, Haran, and Sora pressed against the viewport, staring at the station with wide eyes. They'd never seen anything like it. Their homeworld had been peaceful, rural. This was urban civilization at its most diverse. Many beings, Sora whispered. So many different. Welcome to Haven, Daeho said. It's not perfect, but it's safe. Rules here are strict. No slavery, no unprovoked violence. Anyone breaks those rules, station security doesn't ask questions. They just shoot. The women absorbed this information silently. Daeho could see them communicating telepathically. That subtle exchange of glances and small gestures. They did that more now, comfortable around him. He'd learned to recognize when they were having their private conversations. Station security met them at the airlock. A human woman named Lee and her Centaurian partner. They checked IDs and cargo. Daeho had prepared forged documentation for the women. It wouldn't hold up under serious scrutiny, but it would get them through basic inspection. Lee looked at the 3 Talvari with sympathy. Refugees? Yes, Daeho said. Their colony was destroyed. They need asylum. Lee nodded. She'd seen this before. The galaxy was full of displaced persons, running from wars and disasters. We can process them. There's a Talvari community in the lower levels, about 40 individuals. They might know someone. Hope lit Yuna's face. Other Talvari. Possible family. Friends. Connections to what they'd lost. Daeho arranged temporary housing, a small apartment in the mid-levels. Not fancy, but clean and safe. The women moved through it carefully, touching everything with gentle curiosity. A bed. A food synthesizer. A window overlooking the interior plaza. Home? Sora asked, looking at Daeho. Temporary home, he said, until we find something better. Over the next few days, Daeho worked to establish their new life. He contacted the Talvari community, arranged meetings. He registered them with the refugee services. He made sure they had credits for food and basic supplies. The women met with other Talvari survivors. Emotional reunions. Shared stories of loss. But when they searched for family, for anyone from their specific colony, they found nothing. Their home was gone completely. Everyone scattered to the cosmic winds or dead. Deho watched Yuna receive this news, saw her shoulders slump, her bioluminescent markings dimmed. Heron held her and Sora pressed close, their little pod mourning together. That night they sat in the apartment in silence. The weight of loss hung heavy. Daiho wanted to say something comforting, but what could he say? He knew this pain. He'd lived it. There were no words that helped. "What happens now?" Heron finally asked. "You build new lives," Deho said. "Haven Station has opportunities, jobs, education, community. You start over." "And you?" Yuna looked at him directly. "What will you do?" Deho hadn't thought about it. He'd been focused on getting them here, getting them settled. His own future was the same as always. Repair the ship, take odd jobs, keep drifting. "I'll stick around until you're settled," he said. "Make sure you're okay. Then I'll probably move on." The silence that followed felt heavy. The women exchanged looks, that telepathic conversation again. Then Yuna spoke. "Why must you move on?" "It's what I do. I don't stay places." "Because you choose not to, or because you have no reason to?" The question caught him off guard. Deho found himself without an answer. "Because he chose not to," he wanted to say. But was that true? Or had he just been running so long that he forgot what staying felt like? "We would like you to stay," Sora said softly. "You saved us, protected us, taught us. We do not want you to leave." "You'll be fine without me," Deho said. "You're strong. You'll adapt." "That is not the point," Heron said. She stood and walked to the window. "Among our people, we form bonds, family pods, people who choose to be together, not because they must, but because they want to. Because together is better than alone." Yuna joined her at the window. "You are alone, Deho. You do not need to be. We are alone without our families. We do not want to be. Perhaps we could be alone together?" Deho felt something tight in his chest. They were offering him belonging, connection. The thing he'd avoided for decades because it hurt too much when you lost it. "I'm old," he said. "Too old for new families." "Age is just time," Yuna said. "It does not determine worth. You proved that when you saved us. Old men who wanted nothing would not have risked everything." "I'm human. You're Talvari. Our cultures are different." "Different is not bad," Heron said. "Different can be good. We can learn from each other. Grow together." "I don't know how to be part of a family anymore," Deho admitted. The truth, finally spoken. Sora came to him then. She took his weathered hand in her smaller ones. "Then we learn together. We do not know how to live without our world. But we will learn. We can all learn." Something broke in Deho. Some wall he'd built 30 years ago, brick by brick, to keep the hurt out. These women, these three remarkable beings, were offering him something he thought he'd lost forever. Purpose. Belonging. Home. "I don't have much to offer," he said. "A broken ship. A criminal record in 6 systems. Enough scars to make a roadmap." Yuna smiled. "We have nothing but each other. That seems like enough to start with." They stood together in that small apartment, 4 beings from different worlds, bound by choice and circumstance. Outside the window, Haven Station hummed with life. Inside, a new kind of family was being born, but even as hope bloomed, reality intruded. The next morning, station security contacted Deho. The Vraxian bounty hunters had arrived at Haven. They were claiming the 3 women were stolen property. They had documentation, falsified but convincing. They were demanding the women be turned over. Haven's administrators were in a difficult position. They couldn't afford a conflict with the Vraxian syndicate, but they also couldn't simply hand over refugees. The case would go before a hearing. 3 days. Deho sat the women down and explained. watched their fear return, fresh and raw. They'd thought they were safe. Now that safety was threatened. I won't let them take you, Deho promised. Whatever it takes? You cannot fight the Syndicate, Yuna said. They are too powerful. Maybe, but I'm pretty stubborn for an old man. Heron shook her head. We will not let you die for us. Then we better make sure nobody dies. We fight this legally first. If that fails, we have other options. The hearing was a nightmare. The Varaxians presented their case with cold efficiency. The women were property, stolen property. The documentation showed purchase receipts, transport records. All fake, but convincing fakes. Daiho countered with testimony about Tal'Vari's sovereignty, about the illegal raid on their colony. But he had no proof, just the women's word against Vraxian documentation. The judge of Altari, with compound eyes and a weary expression, reviewed everything. This is difficult. The documentation appears legitimate. However, Tal'Vari are recognized as sentient beings with rights. I cannot simply hand them over without their consent. They are property, the Vraxian lawyer hissed. Purchased legally. Their consent is irrelevant. Purchased from whom? Deho demanded. Who owned them? Who had the right to sell sentient beings? The conquerors of their world. Salvage rights. There's no war declaration, no legal conquest. You raided a peaceful colony and stole people. That's not salvage. That's kidnapping. The argument continued for hours. In the end, the judge made a decision. I'm granting temporary asylum while this matter is investigated further. The women will remain on Haven Station. The Varaxians will submit additional proof of their claim. We reconvene in 30 days. It was a temporary victory, but temporary was better than nothing. That night, back in the apartment, the women gathered close to Deho. They'd faced the threat together, survived another day. Thank you, Yuna said, for fighting for us. Always, Deho replied, for as long as you need me. We need you, Sora said simply. We choose you. You are our family now. Family. The word didn't hurt anymore. It felt right. Like coming home after a long journey. Deho looked at these three remarkable women and made a decision. He was done running, done being alone. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. I'm staying, he said. Here, with you, if you'll have me. 3 smiles answered him. Brighter than any bioluminescence, warmer than any star. The next weeks passed in a strange tension. The women settled into life on Haven Station while the legal battle continued. Deho spent his days preparing their defense, and his nights learning more about these remarkable beings who had changed his life. Yuna found work with refugee services, helping other displaced beings adjust. Her natural leadership and empathy made her perfect for it. Heron discovered the station's library and spent hours learning about other cultures, other species. Knowledge had always been her passion. Sora, the youngest, surprised everyone by taking an interest in engineering. She apprenticed with a Centaurian mechanic, learning to repair the technology she'd always been curious about. They were building lives. Real lives, and Deho was part of it. But the Vraxians hadn't given up. They pressured the station administrators, threatened trade sanctions, made life difficult for everyone. The 30-day deadline approached like a storm on the horizon. Then, disaster struck in an unexpected form. Deho was in the market district, buying supplies, when he heard the commotion. Shouts, the distinctive crack of gunfire. He ran toward the sound and found chaos. 3 Varaxian bounty hunters had cornered Yuna, Heron, and Sora in a service corridor. The women had been ambushed on their way home from work. The hunters had bypassed station security, sneaking in through cargo channels. End of the line, one of them growled. The boss wants his property back. Dead or alive doesn't matter to us. Deho didn't think. He just moved. Old training took over. He tackled the nearest hunter, surprising him. They went down hard. Deho's fist connected with the alien's jaw. Once, twice, the hunter went limp. The other 2 turned. Weapons rising. Deho was too far away, too slow. He saw his death in their eyes. Then Yuna moved. She grabbed a piece of debris and swung it like a club. The metal connected with a hunter's head. He staggered. Heron joined in, tackling his legs. Sora, terrified but brave, grabbed a fallen weapon and pointed it shakily at the third hunter. "Drop it," she said in broken common. "Drop or I shoot." The hunter hesitated. Sora's hands trembled, but her eyes were fierce. The hunter dropped his weapon. Station security arrived moments later, alerted by the gunfire. They arrested the three Viraxians on the spot. Attempted kidnapping, assault, unauthorized weapons on station. But Deho barely noticed. He looked at the three women, all breathing hard, all frightened but standing tall. They'd fought, defended themselves, defended him. "You saved me," he said, still trying to process it. "Together," Yuna replied. "We protect each other. That is what family does." The incident changed everything. The Viraxians had violated Haven Station's strict laws. Their legal claim became irrelevant when they attempted violent kidnapping. The judge dismissed their case and banned them from the station. The women were officially granted full asylum. They were safe. Finally, truly safe. That night, in the small apartment that had become home, they celebrated. Simple food, cheaper than it should be, but it tasted like victory. They laughed, they shared stories, they were alive and together and free. Later, when Sora had gone to bed and Heron was reading, Yuna sat beside Deho by the window. "What happens now?" she asked. "What do you want to happen?" She was quiet for a moment. "Among my people, when we form family pods, there is a ceremony, a bonding. It joins us not just emotionally, but spiritually. We become one unit while remaining individuals." Sounds beautiful. It can include anyone, not just Talvari. It is about choice and commitment, about saying to the universe that these people are yours and you are theirs. Deho looked at her, understanding slowly dawning. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" Yuna met his eyes. "You are human. We are Talvari. This should not work. Our species have no compatibility, but somehow it does work. I felt it in the nebula when we flew together. I feel it every day when we share this space. You are already part of our pod, Deho. We would like to make it official. All three of you? All three of us. Is that acceptable in human culture?" Deho laughed. He couldn't help it. Here he was, 68 years old, being asked to join a family pod with three alien women who he'd rescued on a whim. His life had become stranger than any story. "Human culture is complicated," he said. "Some accept it, some don't. I stopped caring what most humans think about 40 years ago. The question is, what do I think? What do you think?" He looked around the apartment. At Heron, absorbed in her reading. At the closed door where Sora slept. At Yuna beside him, her bioluminescent markings glowing softly in the dim light. "I think I've been alone long enough," he said. "I think I'd like to be part of something again. Something real. Something worth fighting for. Even if it is strange? Even if others do not understand? Especially then. The best things in life are usually the strange ones." Yuna smiled. Then she called to Heron. When both women were present, she explained what they'd discussed. Heron's eyes lit up. She immediately went to wake Sora, who emerged sleepy and confused until she understood. Then her face broke into the widest smile Deho had ever seen. They arranged the ceremony for the following week. It was small, intimate. Yunji attended, the information broker who'd helped make the rescue possible. A few other friends Deho had made over the years. Members of the Talvari community who were honored to witness one of their own bonding in this unique way. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Yuna led it, speaking in her native language while Heron translated. They stood in a circle, hands joined. Incense burned, filling the room with a sweet scent. The Talvari sang, their voices harmonizing in ways human vocal cords couldn't quite match. Then came the bonding. One by one, Yuna, Heron, and Sora opened their minds fully. Deho felt them reach out, felt their presence in his consciousness. It should have been impossible. Humans weren't telepathic, but desperation in the nebula had forged a bridge. Now love and commitment made it permanent. He felt Yuna's strength and leadership, Heron's endless curiosity and gentle wisdom, Sora's youthful energy and surprising courage. They felt him too, his loneliness and determination, his regret and hope, his love for them that he'd been too afraid to name. They spoke their vows, simple words about protection, partnership, honesty, and choice, about choosing each other every day, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. When it ended, Deho felt different, fuller, like a part of him that had been hollow was now filled with warm light. The women glowed brighter than he'd ever seen, their markings brilliant with joy. "Welcome to our family," Yuna said. "Welcome to ours," Deho replied. 6 months passed. The little apartment became truly home. Deho retired from the mercenary life and started a security consulting business. His decades of experience were valuable, and clients paid well for his advice. The Eternal Dawn finally got the repairs it needed. Yuna became a respected advocate for refugee rights. Heron taught comparative philosophy at the station's education center. Sora completed her engineering apprenticeship and got a job maintaining station systems. But the biggest change came unexpectedly. They'd been approached by other orphaned children on the station. Beings who'd lost their families to war, disaster, or cruelty. The family's reputation for kindness had spread. They adopted their first child 3 months after the bonding, a young Centaurian boy named Kai, who'd lost his parents to pirates. Then came May, a human girl with nowhere else to go. Then others. Different species, different backgrounds, united by need and the family's willingness to give. The small apartment became too small. They moved to a larger space in the residential district. Chaos filled it. Children running, laughing, arguing, different languages mixing together, homework and toys and the beautiful mess of real life. Deho, at 69, found himself father to a dozen children from 6 different species. It was exhausting. It was wonderful. It was everything he'd thought he'd lost forever. One evening, he sat in the common area surrounded by his family. Yuna leaned against his shoulder. Heron held his hand. Sora sat at his feet while reading to the younger children. The older ones argued about something in the kitchen. Normal. Perfectly, beautifully normal. "Are you happy?" Yuna asked quietly. Deho looked around. At this impossible family he'd somehow built. At the life he'd somehow earned. "Yes," he said. "I really am." Through their bond, he felt her satisfaction. Felt all 3 of his wives' contentment. Felt the ambient joy of children who knew they were loved and safe. He'd come to Helios 7 looking for ship repairs. Instead, he'd found everything: purpose, love, family, home. The old soldier had fought his last battle. Now he could finally rest, not in death, but in life. Surrounded by the people who chose him and who he chose in return. Outside the window, Haven Station continued its eternal dance through space. Inside, a family gathered for dinner. Human and alien. Old and young. Born of blood and born of choice. All of them together. All of them home.